Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't done so, why don't you hit the little subscribe button for us? It really does help. Do you have an Xbox Elite or Elite 2 controller that seems to have problems staying centered or it's drifting? Well, like a lot of our other controllers out there, the gimbals or the little joystick inside of it only lasts for a certain amount of time. They eventually wear out and they need replaced. So, in today's video, we're going to look at an Elite 2 controller that had a worn out control stick, and the customer sent it in asking if we could change it for him. So, if you stick around, we'll show you how to get it done. Okay, on the bench today we have an Xbox Elite controller, and this is a Elite 2. So this one's a little bit different than the one we did the grip exchange on. I can link that above. But it does share some features. The one thing is with this one, it's a little harder to get into. We removed the faceplate and there's some tape and it's really kind of a pain, but we'll get into it. The note that it came with says we have left stick drift. So if we come over here to our gamepad checker, we can take a peek to see how bad it is. And that one doesn't look too bad, but he said the left. Honestly, the left one doesn't look horrible. Actually, it's coming back to center really well. I guess if we just nudge it and let go, it kind of sits off center. So it's worn. Honestly, if this was mine, I wouldn't be changing it. But hey, customer said left stick, so we're going to change the left stick to make the customer happy. We'll shut this off just so it's out of our way. All right. So the way we get into this, first things first, we can take off the magnetic parts, take off the handles, take off the grips. And unlike a standard Xbox controller, this one uses a threaded on gimbal. Let me see if I got a regular one. No, those are switch joysticks because, that shim fix that's going around the internet works so well. Here's a standard one. All right. So here's our two types of Xbox sticks. You can see this one here has the threaded top shaft, and this one has just a push on. But otherwise, they're more or less the same part. Put this one away. And the way it worked on the original, you just basically just use the stick and could loosen it up. And that's all we needed to do. Start to unthread it. Then we can move that one aside. Now getting into this is not a trivial matter. We're probably going to need a couple different types of spudgers to do it. And like I was saying already, there's some tape inside, double-sided tape that holds us down, which will fight you. But more or less, you just have to come in where the seam is and get under it and start popping it. You can use one of the guitar pick styles to just hold it apart for you. Get that guy out. And we can come back in on this side. Here again, use that just to kind of hold it apart. And this side's going to be stubborn. There we go. You've got to be a little bit forceful on this style. You're not going to break it. You're not going to hurt it. But you know, you can see here's some double-sided tape on both sides, and it's just snap clips around. But you know, take a couple spudgers. Don't use anything metal. You will beat up the plastic, and you know, when you spend as much as these things cost, you don't want to, you don't want to destroy them. Now we do have security bit Torx in these, just like the other controllers. And there's one that's actually hiding, and I'll show you that in just a second. I guess it's not hiding. They put a sticker on it just to for security reasons. There's no way to remove that with trying to save it. It's you know, it's a self-destructing type sticker. All right, so that's all of our screws. Should be all of our screws. And this part should lift out of the bottom, just like that. And you know, this has our battery and the bottom switches and all the other bits. Okay, I'll set that aside for a moment. Now, we don't have to get completely into it, because all we need to do really is get to this stick, which is right here. So, to be very honest, we don't have to go much past where we're at already. But we can get a stick and thread off our cover. Okay, there's a couple ways we can address getting to this gimbal. And that's, you know, we could remove this board completely and just work on it on our mat. Or we can, you know, move these, get rid of these buttons. And this is pretty similar to the Elite ones, I believe. Yeah. We have to lift it off here, and it looks like there might be a little clip behind the shoulder buttons we'll have to take care of. So let's see what we can do. This isn't going to be the best shot, unfortunately, but hopefully I can show you a little closer once it's apart. There we go. Don't force anything, don't break anything. There we go. So what happened was, is these two clips have to be lifted off their pegs. And then there is a small clip here on both of these that snaps in on both edges. Now with that out of the way, we can get to our gimbal. So these are our solder points for our gimbal. And this really doesn't have to come apart any more than this. So let's just start looking at the gimbal. So there's a few ways here we can do it also. We can use hot air to basically flow all the joints at once and pull it out. But, you know, there's a lot of sensitive parts. We got a lot of plastic, some chips, these cables. So we don't want to, you know, subject this entire board to heat. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put a little bit of leaded solder. These are all made with lead-free solders. So there's a bunch of solder joints that we have to deal with. Some of them electrical, some of them just, you know, chassis mount. As you can see here, there's 4 around the switch, there's 3 on each of the rheostats, and then there's 4 more that are just part of the chassis. So little flux on, got our temperature up, and make sure we're working on the left one, the proper one. And we are just going to put some leaded solder on. We're not going to bother with the low melt stuff on this, but adding some leaded solder definitely helps get things to flow. Because lead-free solders don't flow so well. I'm cleaning the tip off randomly because I want to get the lead-free solder back off the tip. And I believe that's all of them. Yeah. All right. So now we have some leaded solder on, and we can just use a simple suction pump. It may not pull all the solder up, but it'll get us close enough that we can apply a little heat and get them out. Like that one definitely didn't pull it all up, but oops. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, most of those do not want to come up. So the next part we can do, the next thing we can try is using a little desoldering braid on it. See if we can get up the rest. All right, so this one is being a little stubborn. So we're just gonna go ahead and hit it with some of this low temp solder on a couple of these joints. What this does is this solder, I can show you a little blob here. Once it melts, it stays fluid for quite a long time, as you can see. So when these get stubborn like this, all we do, we isolate the couple joints that we know are hanging up, and as you heat around, it comes out. All right, sorry. Didn't go exactly as I planned, but you know, that's sometimes how these repairs go. This low temperature solder, which is linked below, is actually a lifesaver on some of this newer stuff. You know, we didn't want to take it apart any more than we had to, and we didn't want to have to force anything. You know, we use the pump. I would say 9 times out of 10, just hitting the pump around it, it pulls enough solder up that it releases. But, you know, sometimes in cases like this, it doesn't. So the next thing we need to do is clean that solder off the board, because it's not very good electrical solder. So put a little flux down. And this low temp stuff cleans up pretty quick. And where'd our braid go? There it is. Get a nice clean spot on our braid. We just want to make sure all the holes are open, which on this low temp solder, it usually flows pretty quick and comes right back up. That one's not opening, so let's get a fresh spot on the braid and keep going. Okay, it looks like all of our holes are open, and we just need to clean up the old flux. A little IPA will do great for that. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Now we can take our new stick, and if all the holes are clean, it should just drop right into place. Just like that. Now with the stick the whole way up and in, we can see all of our little pins are in place. So what I like to do is, we're not going to use this leaded solder, we're going to use 6337. I'll go ahead and just solder one of our anchors. These take the most heat because it's part of the metal chassis. So you got to keep it on for just a second. But with that one pin in place, you can push it up square, reheat it, and it will hold it. Now we can go back around and solder up the rest of our points. We can add a little bit of flux to the chassis points. It'll help everything flow down into the board better. Going around and doing all your electrical points first puts a little bit of heat on the board and helps everything flow into place. All right, so the final step before we reassemble this guy is to just clean up the flux. You always want to clean up the flux. Even, you know, a lot of this, I'm using the Amtech, and it will evaporate with enough heat, but obviously we're not taking it to that point. And it is actually one of the no clean fluxes, but it's always best just to remove it. Okay. And that's pretty much it. From here, we just reverse the procedure to reassemble it, and I'm going to do that, and you can join me when it's all back together. Okay, we got it all back together. The faceplate snapped back down, and you know, just a word of caution: when you are reassembling this, the chassis that goes inside, make sure that the vibrating motors are the whole way up in, and start with it from this side. Align the two motors, drop it back, and it will go in flat. You can get all your screws back in, and you know, everything will function from there. So we're back together. Let's see if it improved on our tester at all. It looks pretty good. And that one's about the same. Make sure all the rest of our buttons are working. And they are. Okay. So that pretty much does it. So that's how you change the stick in an Elite 2 controller. Oh, one more word of advice. The metal these threads are made out of isn't the strongest, and they're fairly small. And the bit that comes off of the top, when you're putting it on, make sure it's very square as you start to roll it on. If you cross thread it, it's very easy to do, and then you'll damage the stick. But if you make sure it's straight and you just roll it slow, the threads will grab and it'll roll right back on. You can also use a little IPA to clean out the inside of the threads, because there was originally a little thread locker in there. So, but there it is. That's how you change the stick on a Elite 2 controller. It's not the easiest one in the world to do, but it's not too dreadfully hard either. It does take some time. It takes some force to get it apart, but, and I know most of the time I say don't force things, but in this case, use a plastic spudger and you're going to have to use some force. Just work your way around. It'll pop open. So, if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put them down below. The parts used today, such as the gimbals and the low melt solder, I'm going to link them below so you'll have access to them. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. And I appreciate you being here. I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks.